I've been thinking about this a lot lately. I don't think we spend enough time reflecting. I feel like we're always consuming something. We're reading another book, listening to another podcast, watching another YouTube video, scrolling through Instagram or TikTok, even when we are driving or eating. There's usually something playing in the background. It's almost like we've become uncomfortable with silence. And don't get me wrong, I love learning. If you've seen my bookshelf, you'll know I am probably the worst person to make this argument. I have way more books than I could realistically finish in the next few years. Every time I walk into a bookstore, I somehow convince myself that I need this book, that this book will change my life. And recently I realized something. I have spent so much of my life trying to collect ideas. I wanted to know and understand how successful people think, how disciplined people build habits, how happier people live, how healthier people eat. I was always looking for the next answer. But I forgot to ask myself what I actually think because learning and reflecting are not the same thing. You can read 10 books on productivity and still procrastinate. You can watch hours of videos about something you've always wanted to learn and still never actually learn it. You can know exactly what to do and still not do it. Information doesn't automatically become part of you. It only becomes yours once you've spent time sitting with it. I started noticing this with my reading. There are books that I finished a year ago that I barely remember. Not because they were bad books, but because I immediately moved on to the next one. I never gave myself the chance to ask, what did I actually get from this book? What idea challenged something I believed? Did it actually change the way I live? And to be fair, I know not every book needs to change your life. Sometimes we read because it's fun. Sometimes we read because we need an escape. Honestly, I've done that too. There have been seasons where books were actually what I needed, a place to disappear for a while. But every now and then, you come across a sentence that make you stop, or a character that makes you question something about yourself. Those are the moments that I don't want to rush past anymore. I want to sit with them. I want to ask why they affected me because I think that's where reading becomes more than entertainment. It becomes part of who you are. That's probably why journaling has become such an important part of my life. Why do I journal? It's not because I have an interesting life to document. Most of my days look almost the same. I make coffee, I take care of my dogs, I go to the gym, I work, I read, I cook dinner. On paper, they're pretty uneventful. But that's not what I'm writing about. I'm not trying to remember what I did. I'm trying to understand what I was thinking, what I was feeling, and why. Because sometimes the most interesting thing that happened that day wasn't something that happened to me. It was something I realized about myself. Sometimes I'll sit down because I think I'm stressed about work. Then, minutes later, I realize I'm not stressed. I'm disappointed or Maybe I'm afraid of failing, or maybe I am comparing myself to someone online without even realizing it. It's funny because when those thoughts are just floating around in my head, they all feel the same. Everything feels like one giant cloud. But the moment I write them down, they start separating. I can actually see them, and once I can see them, they become much easier to deal with. I honestly think so many of us carry emotions we don't even understand because we never slow down long enough to ask where they're coming from. Instead, we distract ourselves, we scroll, we watch another video, we tell ourselves we'll think about it tomorrow, and then tomorrow becomes next week. I wonder sometimes if that's why life feels so fast. Not because time is moving faster, but because we're never really present for it. We're always moving on to the next thing, the next book, the next goal, the next purchase, the next vacation, the next version of ourselves. We're constantly asking what's next, but almost never asking what just happened. I think that's where reflection comes in. Reflection is how experiences become lessons. Without it, life just becomes a collection of events. One thing I've been trying to remind myself lately is that growth doesn't happen while we are consuming, it happens in the pause afterward. It's kind of like working out. You don't build muscle while you're lifting the weights. You're actually breaking your muscles down, then the growth happens during recovery. I wonder if our minds work the same way. Maybe all the books we read, all the conversations we had, all the experiences we go through, they don't really change us until we give ourselves the space to process them. And I think that's something we've become really bad at. We're so afraid of wasting time that we fill every moment with something. But maybe those empty moments were not empty to begin with. Maybe those are the moments where we were supposed to do our thinking. These days, I'm trying to spend as much time reflecting as I do consuming. Because I don't think becoming a better person is about collecting more ideas. I think it's about taking the ideas you already have and giving them enough space to become part of who you are. I'm probably still going to buy more books. That's honestly not changing anytime soon. But I hope I get better at carrying their lessons with me instead of just moving on to the next one.